Words are windows, or their walls, by Ruth Bebermeyer. I feel so sentenced by your words. I feel so judged and sent away. Before I go, I've got to know, is that what you meant to say? Before I rise to my defense, before I speak in hurt and fear, before I build that wall of words, tell me, did I really hear? Words are windows, or they're walls. They sentence us or set us free. When I speak and when I hear, let the love light shine through me. There are things I need to say, things that mean so much to me. If my words don't make me clear, will you help make me free? If I seem to put you down, if you feel I didn't care, try to listen through my words to the feelings that we share. Hi, I'm Jessica Disbrow, licensed social worker and registered psychotherapist in the state of Colorado. I'm also the founder and primary therapist of Higher Consciousness Healing. We're an innovative mental health practice in Lakewood, Colorado, offering community building, free online education, individual and group services. We also specialize in working with youth and millennials. If you want to learn more about our practice and all the things we do there, definitely check us out on the web at www.higherconsciousnesshealing.org. Right now you're watching our live video blog, which airs every Saturday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, where we talk about different mental health topics from a spiritual and scientific perspective. So thank you so much for joining us today. I know there's a lot of things you could be doing with your Saturday morning, and I think talking about communication techniques, especially after the holidays. I mean, we've been talking about this, so hopefully you caught last week's episode before going into the holidays. It can be a tough time for a lot of people, and at least the people that I know of, it was a lot. So bridging that gap with communication with our loved ones can just make all the difference. But why talk about communication? Everyone thinks, lots of people think they're good communicators, and we're actually pretty bad at it. We know what we mean when we say it, and we know what we're trying to get across, but that's just our perspective, and that doesn't really translate well a lot of times with other people. We're talking about nonviolent communication today. We were last week as well, also known as compassionate communication. And now there's something that I wanted to bring up, which, I kind of brought up a little bit last week, but I wanted to really drive it home this week, because I think a lot of people think it's normal. I mean, it is normal, but a lot of people think it's okay to be fighting in relationships, especially intimate relationships. It's normal, we have our monthly fight and whatever, but it's not okay. It is still kind of coming from a place of dysfunction and from a place where those unsettled, really intense emotions are coming from. And it's better not to feed into that and not to tolerate and accept that, because it really doesn't have to be like that. A lot of us are playing out patterns from our childhoods, patterns from our parents, ways that we saw them interact, and it's really not helpful. So arguing just isn't okay. And even passive acts of violence aren't okay. I'm all about the love, and I think a lot of times people don't look at the whole picture. So, nonviolent communication, what is it? Well, it's a way for us to communicate from the heart, which resolves conflicts peacefully. The book that I am referencing is by Marshall B Rosenberg. I'll put it up on the screen. It's backwards, but I really encourage that everyone get this book. I'm going to be going over the 4 components of his technique and language of life. but it's much better having all of the examples, it being really fleshed out. This is like a 15-minute show and I can't get to it all. So please, buy the book. All right, so what are the 4 components? Well, it's observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And while this seems pretty like easy and self-explanatory, it's like actually really complicated because we have all this past programming and all of this like not great societal norms that aren't very peaceful. So let's see. I'm just gonna read from the book right now. So the NVC process, when we're speaking to each other, we talk about concrete actions that we observe. That's the observation part, and how they affect our well-being. Then we think about how we feel in relation to what we observed. Then we think about what our needs are, where our values and desires fall into place that created those feelings in the first place. And then we take concrete action and request something from the other person to enrich our lives in a more balanced way. What does that all mean? I'm going to break it down and then I'm going to give an example at the end, which I think will tie it all together. So observations, really what that means, because we can observe things and we can make a lot of opinions and judgments and evaluations on what we're observing. However, in this form of communication, we're observing without evaluating, without all of those things. Because what it really sounds like when we evaluate someone, even if we're making what we think is like a pretty fair assessment of their mental or emotional state, it sounds like a criticism and it sounds like an attack to the other person. So immediately they're going to get defensive, and that's just not the way to start out a good conversation. So I have some examples for you. So an example of an observation with an evaluation involved is Doug procrastinates. Well, why don't we take that evaluation out? Because now you're saying he's a procrastinator. So why don't we say Doug only studies for exams the night before? You see how different that is? One is really an observation of something that's fact and true, while the other one's an evaluation and a mild judgment, as there's negative associations with the word procrastinate. Another example, Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. How about this? Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games. Big difference. And the last one, Jim, well, he's pretty ugly. That's not very nice. So instead, we might say, Jim's looks don't appeal to me. Really taking ownership of that the person doesn't appeal to him. So what makes it kind of challenging is we really want to use words like always, never, ever, or whenever. And these are really extreme statements when we say always or never. They're exaggerations. So using things like seldom or frequently can really, really help when we're making observations about people. So if you ever catch yourself being like, you never do the dishes, like your partner probably does do the dishes sometimes. It's not a never thing. All right, number 2 of the 4 components, feelings. And this one's by far the most complex out of all the components because we have such an emotionally repressed society that we don't have a good vocabulary for emotions. We just don't. We have a much broader category of insults for other people than we do our emotions. So that's a problem. Also, another problem is that people tend to say the word I feel in relation to things that are not emotions. They're not actually feelings. I first noticed this when I was in college, actually. And I was a few years older than some of the students that I was going to school with because I took a break between high school and college. And so hearing some of these questions from these younger students, I was a bit judgmental. But a lot of them would raise their hands and say, well, I feel like the character was doing blah-de-de-blah because of blah-de-de-blah. And it's like, you feel that way or you think that? Because that's not really a feeling. You're just potentially saying the word I feel because people are less likely to defend your position or get defensive over your position because you're like, well, I'm talking about my feelings, not my thoughts, so you can't argue with my feelings because it's how I feel. That's just messy. Like, let's not go there. That's not helpful. So building your awareness around your feelings and vocabulary around your feelings is really, really key. The next major component, which really falls into our third area of needs, but it's still kind of in the feelings realm, is taking responsibility for our feelings. So once we've identified our feelings and assess where they're coming from, part of it is recognizing that the other person is only the stimulus of your feelings. They're not the cause of your feelings. The cause is coming from inside you. And typically speaking, we're reacting from negative past experiences in those moments. So we're being stimulated, we're being triggered, and now we're like on attack. So that's not helpful. So really helpful to recognize, when we're getting high end and not blame the other person for our own feelings. I feel sad. Not, you made me feel sad because you did blah-de-de-blah. Not helpful. So it's really not about blaming yourself or blaming the other person. It's really about the feelings and needs behind those things. And that's hard for us to hear on the receiving end when someone is screaming at us and we're like, whoa, dude, like, what do you need? How are you feeling? And sometimes we can't just directly ask that person because they're in a moment. So we have to take a step back and think about what their underlying needs and feelings are and help ask questions to probe what is really going on with that other person instead of making those assumptions or those evaluations or telling them what we think about them and what they're doing, The last part, requests. Now that we've identified our feelings and the needs behind them, now it's time to make a request because now we're like, yeah, I don't need to just be upset and not be in a good state of mind. I can use positive language, be really clear and specific about what I need. It's like so important to be specific. Not using vague language, like the word good. That's not really helpful. What does that mean? I'm doing good. Just an example. And make sure to really express those feelings and own up to them. Take responsibility. The example that I'm going to share from the book, because it's just such a clean-cut example, and it's not really personal, it's not really that emotional either, so we're doing it. From the book that we're referencing, a mother might express these three components to her son, the first three, by saying, because there's something going on between them, Felix, when I see 2 balls of soiled socks under the coffee table and another 3 next to the TV, I feel irritated because I'm needing more order in the rooms that we share in common. Then she would follow it up by a request. Would you be willing to put your socks in the room or in the washing machine? Amazing. So instead of mom getting really upset at son and being like, you always leave your socks everywhere and why can't you clean up for yourself and saying, Felix, when I see your socks laying around I feel irritated because I need more order in the spaces we share in common. Completely valid. And then asking directly for what would be helpful. Would you be willing to put your socks in the washing machine or your room? That's simple. But a lot of times we see socks, and we've seen the socks before, and that elicits an intense response from us. It's all about taking a step back and breathing, figuring out what those emotions are, what the needs are, and making a request. All right. It seems simple, but it's a complex process, and there's so many great tips in this book. I really recommend it for everyone. Thank you for joining us. Great. So next week, we're going to talk more about emotions, because it's not something, like, we talk about it here and there, but I really want to ride home and really get into it deeply. So next week, exploring our emotions. And we're going to be talking about how to build awareness around our emotions, how to regulate our emotions a little bit better, and all of those sticky feelings in between. A lot of people have, only so many emotions that they can access. A lot of times because they're the more extreme ones, so they're the ones we notice more. So how about tuning down and tuning into those more subtle emotions as well? All right. Please, if there's any questions or comments, definitely, I'm going to look. There are a few comments right now. I did see. Okay, I'm going to just breeze through them. If anybody else has any more questions or comments in the audience, now would be a great time to ask. And let me just look through these guys. Okay, I don't think I need to mention any of those ones. One of them is a little confusing, but okay. So if you did write some comments and you do have a direct question, definitely make sure to make that known. I do have an announcement while we're waiting, because there is a little bit of a delay time on Facebook Live. The big announcement: if you've caught a couple of these shows and you're interested and you're like, who is this woman? What is she talking about? It sounds kind of cool, but like I'm a little lost. We're going to be doing our New Year's challenge starting January 1st on Facebook, where we're going to be re-airing each of our episodes back to back. So on January 1st, the first episode will air. On January 2nd, the second episode will air, and so on. So you'll get a really good idea of how all these dots connect and how we can empower ourselves through our own healing, really take control of our lives, and really live a beautiful, aligned life for ourselves. So important. So definitely check us out. If you're interested in joining, make sure to adjust your notification settings. Like and follow our page, like us on YouTube, or subscribe on YouTube, and then adjust your settings so it pops up as see first, just for the month of January. You can change it back later. And then each day it will pop up on your news feed without you having to do much more. And be a really easy way to participate. Or you can come and check out our page directly every day. It's up to you. All right. We're still having our spiritual support group for millennials. It's been going so well. So if you're interested in that and you're between the ages of 18 and 30, please check us out. We're moving to a new location, Full Moon Books and Events. But we're really excited to see that expanding, and we're offering other group services for millennials in 2018. So definitely be on the lookout for that as well. All right, I don't see any other questions, so I will take that as a cue for me to head out. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and take care. All right, bye.